Hey guys, welcome back to Bible Fun with the Nuns. Today we're studying 2 Chronicles chapter 8. Let's get started.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I want you to remember whenever we're reading through 2 Chronicles, most of this information has already been previously recorded. So what Ezra is trying to do, he's trying to reteach his people how far they've come, how they got their kingdom, how they lost their kingdom, and now that they're back after exile, this is how they can lose it again. Like Orville just lost table privileges just then. All right, so you can find this story in 1 Kings chapter number 9. Now, it's a fairly short chapter as compared to some other ones that we've read recently. John, what'd you think about it?
So this chapter was kind of tough to pull something from, but this is basically the gist of it. So Solomon had just finished building the temple, and God, and everything was like going great. God was giving him wealth, riches, and power, and if we look back to when God first asked Solomon what he wanted, Solomon asked for wisdom, and God said, since you didn't ask for like power, money, and like riches or wealth, I'm going to give you those also. And so we can see that God kept his promise in this chapter, and yeah.
Okay, I agree with that. So anytime God makes a promise, he keeps a promise. That's the way God works. Now, a couple of things I think we need to see from this chapter is one of Solomon's main roles in becoming king of Israel was to build what?
The temple.
Was to build the temple. Now, when he becomes king, he starts on that project immediately. Now, overall, Solomon really doesn't have a long reign as king. He's only going to reign about like 20 years. He reigns from about when he's 40 years old to about 60 years old-ish. It takes him 7 years to build the temple and then 14 years to finish building his house, which I always thought was odd that he spent twice as long on his house as he did God's house, but I guess that's his business. Well, what is interesting though is you can kind of start to see where Solomon starts to really kind of fade. And we know this because we've read other books of the Bible where Solomon's later years weren't as faithful as his younger years. For instance, in verse number 11, it says, Now Solomon brought the daughter of Pharaoh up from the city of David to the house that he had built for her, for he said, My wife shall not dwell in the house of David, king of Israel, because the places to which the ark of the Lord have come are holy. So Solomon had gotten married at some point through here. And of all of the people and all the places and all the lands and all the situations, the lady he found, which eventually just became one of like 1,000, okay? So the one he found was Pharaoh's daughter. So the traditional oppressors of Israel, that Israel wasn't even allowed to go back to Egypt. Don't ever go back there. Solomon marries the Pharaoh's daughter, which you got to wonder, what's going on? Now, some would say, well, he's just trying to make treaties with his neighbors. And look, he made a lot of those treaties. That's certainly true. But, I mean, if there's one place he should have just said, no, let's be a little distant from that. It should have been Egypt. Now, here's what he does. He marries her, but they don't live in the same house. Okay, he lives in the palace and she lives in a house that Solomon built for her. Here was his reasoning. He said, because the ark of God, which stayed kind of near Solomon before it went to the temple, anywhere the ark was a holy place. And he said, my wife, the Egyptian, she comes from a place where they don't believe in the one true God. They worship many gods. And she probably is still active in worshiping those other gods. He said, I love her, but we're not on the same page on that. So she can't stay here because I don't want her to make this place dirty, which is odd. Because whenever you're reading through this story, we're sensing probably he's saying that he can't allow her to get close because it would defile maybe the land. But what we're looking at is Solomon had already broken the law by marrying her in the first place. But he's assuming that he can keep her distant so that she doesn't influence him and compromise the holiness of the area. Well, here's what anybody who's ever dealt with sin understands. Sin is never going to stay put. Sin is never going to not compromise other areas. When Solomon made this decision to marry this lady and she brought her faith into the kingdom, that just kind of sprouted and grew from there, and it got ugly. Now, this is the last thing I saw, and I thought it was pretty neat. In verse 14, it's just talking about the daily activities of these people. And it says, and according to the order of David's father, he appointed divisions of the priests for their service, the Levites for their duties, to praise and serve before the priests as the duty of each day required. Here's what I took away from that. Every single day has a duty, has a responsibility, and has a purpose. And every single day, either at the beginning or at the end, we need to look up and we need to ask ourselves, have we fulfilled the purpose of this day? So for whatever God has put us here for, if there's a responsibility, if there's a task, if there's an assignment, number one, what is it? Number two, did I do it? Because if I didn't do it, then what have I really done with my day? Solomon organizes everybody and says everybody serves a purpose somewhere. And I think that's still true today. All of us serve a purpose somewhere. We need to figure out what that purpose is, and then we need to ask, have we done it? All right? Hope you have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow in chapter number 9. Bye.